All right, so we're back at trade show again. And so a big thing that we're trying to do with information for buyers to help them be more successful in their sourcing is to try and aggregate the information. There's a lot of information overload out there about tips for buyers to be successful at the expo, the factory visit, and the final contract. In the last 5 years, coming to the trade shows, talking to lots of buyers, hearing lots of questions at conferences. A lot of the questions are about problems that buyers have. A lot of questions are about products that have been ordered, they're misdelivered, the quality's bad, there's a defect, the warranty problems. There's always lots of questions about problems. And actually the answer or the big solution to overcoming these problems is actually to invest more time at the beginning start of the relationship. And so what we've developed with the China Sourcing Academy is a set of tools or tips organized around a three-circle framework. And that three-circle framework basically is the relationship, structuring the relationship, and then we have due diligence and documentation, and then we have measurement and verification. And so in each of those three circles, there is a lot of tips and a lot of steps that we actually take buyers through. We actually take you through in the China Sourcing Academy. So you can get the tools to be successful, and you tick all the boxes and make sure you do what you need to get done. So what we're going to do is go briefly through those three circles in these parts of videos. So the first circle we want to go through now is structuring the negotiation and the relationship. And many people think structure, relationship, what's that got to do with each other? Well, it has everything to do with each other. What we encourage buyers to do is to start with a list of questions about the features of the product they want, when they want it delivered, and the quality standard. A list of questions to come to the trade show floor to actually ask questions. The relationship starts at the trade show floor when you're structuring the relationship with your questions of what you think is relevant for you to have that product delivered into your country. And so when we say structure, it's all about listing the questions that you need to ask at the trade show floor. Then you go to the factory visit, and then after you do due diligence on the factory, and then you're ready for negotiations. All that stage is you're asking questions. So in fact, in the trade show, some of the questions you might ask will be about basic features of the product. Can the supplier deliver what you want delivered and when you want delivered? What can the supplier do, what can't the supplier do? They're basic questions. The next stage, you go to the factory visit, and you can ask another set of questions about, is the factory ISO certified? Is the quality control systems in place? They say they have a certain capacity. Does it look like they have that capacity? If they're making 20,000 units a month, does it look like they have hundreds of workers on the show floor, or is it just one or two workers on the show floor? Do they have a QC room? Go and have a look at the QC room. You'll see the filing cabinets. And like one factory visit, we went lots of filing cabinets in one corner, but there was nothing in the filing cabinets. We'll go this way around here. So these are questions that you need to ask. And so when it comes to negotiation, after you decided, oh, I like this factory, I've asked all these questions, now into the negotiation, you can start asking questions about the price and the ability of the supplier to actually make the product that you want. So you're focusing the negotiation, you're structuring the negotiation based on a set of questions. So for example, if a supplier says they can make a Bluetooth speaker for $6.99 US, you might ask them, instead of bargaining for, oh, can you give it to me for $5? Can you give it to me for $6? You focus the questions on, oh, for $6.99. So what's the normal volume? Okay, and is this sustainable in 6 months' time? Are you able to make a profit so you can give it to me for $6.99 6 months' time? Because I have a brochure that I have to commit to, I can't go and change the prices in a brochure if you suddenly change your price. So how much is $6.99 to you? Is this a rock bottom price for you that in the future, if you have increases in labour costs, will you be forced to put up this price? And so you're asking questions to the supplier that is all about the capability of the supplier to sustain the delivery of that product for the price that they want you to pay. And so by focusing the questions on what makes $6.99 for this Bluetooth speaker, what are the materials costs, what are the labour costs, what is the delivery costs, maybe the supplier may not answer that, but some suppliers will. Good suppliers will. They will know what their costs are, and that will communicate to you that they are a good supplier. But this will help you in negotiation because you're focusing the negotiation on the capability of the supplier. You're focusing the negotiation on the business model of the supplier. Is the business model sustainable? And you don't want to work with a supplier that is here today and gone in 2 months' time. You want to work with a supplier that has a sustainable business model. So the negotiation is not about me. and demanding that you do it for this price, otherwise I'll walk away. Negotiation is about asking questions so you can understand better what is the supplier's sustainable business model. And so that's what we focus on in that first circle. That first circle is all about questioning. And that's what we mean by structuring the business relationship, by having a set of questions at the trade show, having a set of questions at the factory visit, and having a set of questions in the negotiations. In that way, you communicate commitment to the product that you're trying to source, and in some ways, you deflect the focus on yourself onto the supplier in the negotiations. And in that way, you can actually try to develop a better relationship or win over the supplier in the negotiations because you're showing concern for the supplier's business model. And so in that way, that's how I'm saying in this first circle, how we can use structure, that is in terms of questions, to help develop the relationship with your supplier. So there's our first circle. We'll catch you shortly where we talk about the second circle, and that is due diligence and legal documentation. And then the third circle, which is measurement and verification. We'll come back to you in a minute. Thank you. Okay, we're back again, and we're doing a second circle in the three circle framework. This is a framework where you can actually structure all the tips and steps so you can be successful as a buyer. And the second circle is due diligence and legal documentation. Due diligence starts early. It actually starts with you, with the assistance of a lawyer, checking the Chinese records of the company and the factory address of a potential supplier that you may source from. This is a minimum due diligence that any buyer should do. And this is the only way to find out, because China has strict laws on the registration of addresses of the companies and where the factories are located. And they cannot be located in another address if they say they're located in this address. And by law in China that they're breaking the law there. So you can actually do due diligence. That's very, very important. But there are other parts of this second circle, and that is getting the purchase order in place, having the right intellectual property protections in place, warranties and ADR clauses. Now the purchase order is something we expand in another session, but that is your ultimate source of control. Ultimately, that's the thing you come back to if something goes wrong, the purchase order. It's the only thing you can take to court. If it's not in the purchase order and it's not clearly specified and something goes wrong, then you cannot come back and say, oh, it's not in the purchase order. And then the supplier will say, well, it's in the brochure, this is what we promised. Yeah, but we expected a better standard than that. But you didn't put that better standard in the purchase order. So if it's not written down, then you cannot expect it to come to fruition. So keep that in mind with the purchase order. That is your main mechanism of control. Okay, we've got due diligence audits. Then we have intellectual property. The thing about intellectual property in China is it's relatively cheap to get patents, brand names, business registration done, designs registered. It's very cheap, much cheaper than US. The only challenge is that you need to do it early, because in China, it's a first to register system. So even though someone is not selling your product in China, they can register your trademark, they can register your design, and you don't even know that. And in 1 or 2 years' time, you want to sell in China, suddenly someone else is using your design or trademark. They were first to register, even though they weren't selling. And so the big challenge for IP protection is you must do it early. You must do it early and give yourself 1 or 2 years, even before you ever hope to actually sell in China. All right, keep that in mind. The other thing with IP protection, maybe you're not selling in the China market, but you're selling overseas with no hope of selling in China market, you still should register in China anyway. Okay? So keep that in mind. First to register system in China, always. Warranties, the other thing, keep in mind, the best warranty protection is due diligence in terms of quality control. Make sure the supplier is right, make sure that the purchase order has all the protection in there, and the protection is very specific requirements that you want to be checked off on the product before it is shipped. That is your best warranty. Your second best warranty is actually getting the supplier to make 4% more of whatever size order you want, and you pay the supplier 4% more. So just build that into your business model. A warranty to you is worth 4% more. Are you prepared to pay that just in case something goes wrong on a small scale? Then you have protection because you have that inventory to replace. You don't have to go back to the supplier. But if it's a massive failure, then you need to go back to the purchase order and make sure that that failure is connected with a particular term or quality requirement that you asked of the supplier. So keep that in mind. Finally, we have ADR clauses, and ADR clauses is basically the alternative dispute resolution clauses. And what's important here is that we all know that we have a letter of demand if something goes wrong. That's a nasty letter from a lawyer, or I can sue your pants off. Basically, we go to the courts and we have legal. There's two options, but really there's a grey area in between that not enough buyers take advantage of, and that's ADR, alternative dispute resolution procedures, basically arbitration and mediation. So when it comes to mediation, mediation is the soft side, and soft side meaning that you can have someone to meet between you and the supplier and help you mediate with the supplier, but their judgment, their decision is not binding. Or you can go next level and have someone arbiter appointed to your dispute. In that case, it's a little bit more complicated, because if the arbiter makes a decision, then the decision is binding. Both these mechanisms are increasingly encouraged in China, and you have no access to these mechanisms if they're not written down as a clause in your purchase order or in your memorandum of understanding in the contract. So if not in the contract to start with, you can't expect to go and have a mediator or an arbitrator if something goes wrong. Your only levers at the end is a letter of demand or going straight to court. So there you have it, purchase order, due diligence audits, intellectual property, warranties, ADR clauses. This is your second circle of the due diligence and legal documentation. Stay tuned to the next package where we'll look at the third circle, and that is measurement and verification. Thank you. Hey, back again. Yeah, we're at the Global Sources Trade Show, and we're just finishing the third of three circles, the three-circle framework. And this is, remember, the first circle is structuring the relationship. Lots and lots of questions, but really systematic questions, help you through negotiation. All right, the second one again, remember, due diligence and legal documentation. With the help of lawyers, you can actually do this relatively inexpensively. And we know the great thing about China is there's a lot of record keeping. Suppliers, companies have to comply with a lot of registration requirements in China. So that's good for you. It's all in Chinese, so you can get a lawyer to help you with that. But we're now looking at third circle, and that's measurement and verification. And this is where you need to focus on helping the third-party auditor to do what you want the auditor to check on. So you cannot just say, oh, I want excellent quality. Please check off and tell me if the quality is not there before the shipment, yes or no. Well, an auditor can't do that. You need to explain to the auditor, what do you mean by quality? How many dead pixels? Okay, what are the tolerances of the battery life, the electronics, other parts of that's specific to the product that you're sourcing? What are the various tolerances? If you work with a third-party auditor, they can help work through with you what the particular questions and the tolerances are. The biggest challenge that third-party auditors have when I talk to them is that the buyer is not fully conversant with the standards of the product that they're ordering. So it's about having that communication beforehand, before the third-party auditor is actually sent to the factory and is engaged in actually doing the inspection. Okay, so that's mainly for the product inspection. Of course, you've got lab testing, because you've got to comply with various international requirements, whether it's a California 65 rule, FCC, UL, or CE. Remember, they're not all the same. A lot of suppliers will say, oh, we have CE, FCC can do. No, because FCC is a more rigorous standard, and if there's a failure on FCC, that requires a redesign. You cannot just resubmit the same product, it needs to be a redesign. So FCC, they all have their own little peculiar requirements. Not all suppliers do CE can comply with FCC. Keep that in mind, all right? So lab testing will help whether a supplier can meet these standards or not. So we've got product inspection, we've got lab testing. These are important things when it comes to measurement and verification. What you need to do, or be clear on here, is be very crystal clear on what do you want to have measured. So you get the product is passed and is working exactly how you want it before it is even shipped. Because when it comes to your country, you don't want to have the hassle of having to send back that product. And if it's really bad and the supplier isn't properly licensed, if you send it back with the wrong license, you will not be able to avoid customs duty. And in the end, it will just defeat the whole purpose of sending product back. So you want to avoid a lot of these problems before the product is shipped. That's why it's important to get a third-party auditor in. There are a lot of different audits that can be done, and at a minimum, you've got the factory audit, but then you've got the product inspection. But product inspection at various stages. It could be at the sample stage, it could be at the first 5%, it could be at 50% stage, and at the final shipping stage. So various stages. Sometimes audits are made at a particular stage, which provides a quality gate before payment is sent to the supplier. And so you may actually sequence various checks by the auditor with payment that you make to the supplier. So keep that in mind. The perfect quality control system is that you have all the stages audited, and you have full checking of the shipping before any shipping is done. All right. Now, the second backup stage is have your stagger payments. So you don't commit all your money to the supplier up front. You stagger it like 30, 40, 30% up front to buy materials. And it's tied to the purchase of materials. 40% at the shipping stage. So the supplier at least has got their money back of the cost of capital. And then 30% at the final stage, maybe 2 weeks after the products have been shipped. And by that time, you've had a chance to actually test the product in your country, and you can use that as leverage to deal with any problems or faults of the product as they come. So there are different strategies for actually dealing with good quality products, especially in the measurement and verification stage. But the key point, the key responsibility of you as a buyer is to focus on proper measurement of the various quality tolerances that you want the auditor to check off on. And then that will help make the third-party auditors' life a bliss. And that's what we mean by 3 circles. So there you go. We've got 3 circles for a perfect strategy for you when you go into China. Other countries, of course, this would apply. Remember the 3 circles again. We've got structuring the relationship. We have due diligence and legal documentation. And then finally, we have measurement and verification. All of them go together. The big emphasis we want to make is a lot of buyers are really good at one of these circles, and probably write down which area you may be deficient at and get some help to understand how to be stronger in that deficiency. So take it from there. We'll catch you in the next video. Thank you.